So I'm Darren Stevenson. I'm here with my dear friend Ryan First Diver, Nitsitapi man, and we're having some discussions about early attempts to repatriate cultural material and things that have been uh, essentially stolen under the idea that these are natural history items and then ensconced in museums. So Ryan, please start wherever you want. We could go back to the meteorite situation if you're willing, and keep a bookmark on
I'll talk about the meteorite, but I want to tell a Harvard story.
Okay, great.
Because that's where we were. We can return to New York in the history when we get there. But yeah, and I know for my camera thing, I'm gonna fuck this all up, but you're just gonna have to deal with that. All right. So in 1993, I started working with the 1990s, or maybe 1994. I started working with the Blackfoot Tribal Business Council in Browning, Montana. I was a student in Boston at the time. I have Blackfoot heritage, and I was studying all things Blackfoot while I was in school. And one of the things that was going on at the time, I think it was 1993, there was in the US, they had proposed this Land Consolidation Act, and for the tribes. And what they were thinking was, when the reservations were first established in the states, each male head of household was given so many acres of land, proportioned out to, I think it was like 214 acres or something. But it's since split up through the generations, so that now, somebody coming in might only have an acre of land, if that, And so it's hard to make money off of that land when you don't have much of it. And so the government was proposing, well, let's reconsolidate those original tracts and then have the families that live on that space, who are obviously, closely related to the original title owner, have them come up with some kind of business plan to work that land, and then support them to do that. So this was the 1993 Land Consolidation Act. And I thought it sounded really fishy, because I'd like, what? You got to take those original land tracts back into trust,
right.
And then these guys got to figure out a business plan.
Yeah.
This is a First Nations reserve. What are you thinking, right? What's
right.
up here? This sounds fishy. And a lot of people in Indian country were thinking that at the time, And so I looked into it, and because I was going to school in Boston, I was fortunate to have access to Federal Reserve libraries. And so I could go look up the communications, the transcripts of communications between the Bureau of Land Management and the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and, the Senate and the Bureau of Indian, everybody that was involved in bringing this act to Congress and having it passed,
Hmm.
I could see every step of the way and their plans. I got their like plans on paper and everything, and they it was wicked, dude. They had 5 tribes that they were set up to start this land consolidation act on, and the Blackfeet Reservation in Montana was one of them.
Hmm.
And they um, the Bureau of Land Management had mapped out where all of the important subsurface resources were.
Of course.
And so those were the places where they were going to do the experiment, take it into trust. And their whole plan was to mine that shit while they had it in trust.
Yeah.
And it would be a long time because it's hard to get those families to work together, you know,
Yeah.
on those original land trusts that have been, you know, broken up over 100 years now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I brought all of the paperwork to Madge Walters, who was on the Blackfeet Tribal Council at the time, and Earl Oldperson, who was the chair. He's the longest, you know, he is the chief of the Blackfeet in Montana.
Hmm.
He's passed now. He just passed the other year, but for most of my life, he was the chief of the Blackfeet in Montana, and I always had his blessings with the shit I was doing.
Hmm.
But I brought this stuff to them. They went to Washington D.C. with it and shut it down. Okay, and that kind of gave me an inroads with tribal government down there. Like, I didn't do it on purpose to, like, you know, create any inroads or anything like that, but that's what it gave me, some relationships through doing that research that I just thought needed to be done, because I thought something bullshit's going on here, you know, and it sure was.
Yeah, it's like a recolonization.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the process still continues today. It's like,
of course,
not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, back then your name was Ryan Heavyhead.
Yeah.
Copy.
Well, no, it was
No?
Ryan Hancock.
Ah.
That was even before.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Ryan Hancock, and so anyway, I helped them stop that Land Consolidation Act from being instituted, and basically, you know, mining the shit out of the reserves. And then I was invited to some things in the subsequent summer season in Montana that gave me access to Blackfoot art and ceremony, and I wanted to know more. Once I started, you know, experiencing and seeing that, I wanted to know more about it. So I was going into my last year of undergraduate studies in Boston, and I proposed to my mentor there that I do some kind of honors thesis regarding Blackfoot art. And he gave me the summer to think about what I wanted to do. And I never came up with anything, you know, very interesting. When I came back to him at the end of the summer, you know, I had my experiences up here to talk about, but I hadn't reviewed any literature or done, you know, I didn't have a scholarly question at all. I just wanted to know more about Blackfoot art. My whole interest in getting into anthropology and native studies to begin with was just an identity quest, you know. So for me, it was just like, learn more. So I had seen some things I wanted to learn more, and he gave me a stack of books when I came back at the end of summer with no good question. Mm-hmm. He gave me a stack of books, and he says, go away for 3 weeks and you read these. You have to read them all, and you have to come here and be prepared to talk about them, and then we'll formulate some kind of question, right, together. Right. So I went away, and a lot of these books that he gave me were books that were problematizing museum and academies work with Indigenous art altogether. And in there was included a little like privately published thing where somebody had gone and surveyed all of the museums in England, Scotland, Ireland, and France, and put together like an inventory of all of the California Indian items in those museums, just as a resource for the tribes, basically. It was called Times Flotsam. I even forget the author's name, but it's called Times Flotsam. And it was just this inventory of European museum stuff. And when I read a lot of good stuff in those books he gave me, but when I seen that little thing, I was like, oh, there's something I can do. It's right back to that, just like I had just done with the land consolidation. Here's something I can contribute. What if I found out where all the Blackfoot stuff is? And I did up an inventory and I give it to the tribe. Right? This was the idea that I got out of his stack of stuff. And I ended up getting a little grant through my university to carry out that research. I went to try to find out, like, okay, where do you find out where the museums are that have Blackfoot material culture? If you wanted to look for Blackfoot material culture in the world, in its museums, what resource would you turn to tell you where to go?
Right. Nothing.
There's these phone book sized nation by nation museum guides that have these listings that the best you get is like Native North American, Native North American culture, Native North American, whatever, anthropology or ethnology or whatever, right? You don't get tribe by tribe. And so what I had to do is go through all of those world country guides, find the places that had Native North American collections, copy their addresses and all that shit, and then send them a letter, every one of them. So I sent over 4,000 letters.
What?
Yeah. I had a little grant from my because I was doing an honors thesis. I had wicked, like, they were going to support me, whatever what I wanted to do. But they had a little small, like, undergraduate honors thesis. It was like, I don't know, $1,000 or something, but I bought a lot of stamps. And I sent out 4,000 letters. I bought a post office box in Boston, and I got Earl Old Person to write me a letter from Montana, from the Blackfeet tribe. He's the chief, saying I have his blessings. Please give this guy our inventory of what's in your museum. And I start getting dump loads of mail from all around the world,
Mm-hmm.
And then it was interesting because some places that you wouldn't think would respond to you responded. Like, for instance, the Vatican. They gave me a really good response. They sent me photographs of everything that they have, along with the descriptions and accessions information, and they were very clean, and this is it, right? This is what we got. But then there were museums like Harvard's Peabody Museum, for instance, which was like within walking distance across the river from where I lived in Brookline, and they didn't send me anything. And for months I didn't get any response from them. And I'm like, they're one of the major North American museums for Indigenous collections. Like, why haven't they given me a response? And so one day I decided to do like a strategic spy mission and go to the museum. and see what they had on display. So I went over there, walked through their exhibit, and I seen for Blackfoot material, they had a women's society headdress. It's like a buffalo headdress with horns. They had Yellow Kidney. He was a beaver man from Montana at the turn of the century. They had Yellow Kidney's scalp lock suit. Hey, like his buckskin suit with the scalp locks from the Scarface story. They had a couple of horn spoons and a pair of moccasins on display as well. And so I went home and I called them up the next day. And I said, hey, I'm a researcher from University of Massachusetts, and I sent you guys a letter a couple of months back. I haven't had any response, asking for your inventory of Blackfoot materials as part of a project that I'm doing with the Blackfeet Nation from Montana. And I'm just wondering when you guys are going to respond. And then they said, okay, hold on the line. They got whoever needed to talk to me. One of their curators came back. I think her name was Susan, if I remember right. But anyway, I'll just call her Susan. So Susan came back and said, came on the phone and said, well, we didn't respond to you because we really don't have anything of significance at the Peabody that's Blackfoot. I mean, we have a pair of moccasins and a couple of horn spoons. And I said, well, that's funny, because I was in your museum just yesterday looking through what you have on exhibit, and I seen that there's a women's society headdress there, and you have Yellow Kidney's scalp lock suit that's considered a sacred bundle. And I would like to make an appointment to come to your museum and look at your other accessions information and find out what else you have that's Blackfoot in your storage. And so she went away for a couple of minutes from the phone, Susan, and then came back and said, well, it takes, like here at Harvard, you have to schedule months in advance to come and do that kind of research. And so, if you want to do that. And I say, yeah, I'm here. So schedule it, put it on the calendar. She went away for about 3 more minutes, came back on the phone and said, can you come in next week? Well, she was just bluffing me, dude. Right. It's all a fucking bluff.
Of course.
So anyway, she schedules me to come in there the next week, and I go in, and I've just got, a notebook and shit. Like, this is, we didn't even have internet and shit, really, like going on. I don't know, we just barely. And so anyway, I went in and I went through, their files. Susan met me in their accessions department and gave me this paper, and which had a list of all their Blackfoot items. They'd finally put together a list for me, and at the very top of that paper was human remains, which there was a skull there. And then right underneath that, the next item on the list was a Beaver Bundle. And then went down from there. There were several sacred items, bundles, and then a lot of other things. That the collection was significant. Yeah. And so I told her, well, I'd like to look at the accessions files on this Beaver Bundle first thing, And so she gave me that, and I started taking all the notes. They got that bundle for like $300 or something, you know, from the they got it from what is it, the Denver Art Museum. There was a trade that went on, and Denver Art Museum got from Madge Walters, and Madge Walters was this lady from San Francisco who was very rich, who went to, but had some kind of terminal cancer. She went to Browning. She met with a Swimsunder. I think it might have been Mike Swimsunder's dad, the late Mike Swimsunder's dad, who's in my lineage for the Beaver Bundle. He brought her to Blood Tribe, where she got to witness and participate in the Sundance. And she connected at that time with 3 young people here, Eugene Creighton, Frank Redcrow, and it was a woman, I want to say Ethel, but it's a Big Sorrel Horse was her last name, Big Sorrel Horse. 3 people that Madge Walters, young people, like in their like early 20s. And she connected with them. They all had parents and close relatives in major positions in the societies, and in the Sundance and such. And they started selling her things. Sometimes they would fake it. They would make the shit themselves and sell her a replica that she couldn't tell the difference.
Of course.
But going through the museums, we can tell the difference.
Of course.
Sometimes they would sell her that stuff, but a lot of times, once someone with a major bundle was passing on, they would go in and acquire that bundle for a very small amount of money.
Yeah.
Sometimes $35-50.
Can I interrupt you with a question here for a moment?
Sure.
Explain to the people listening something about what a beaver bundle is.
All right. So Beaver Bundle, for instance, the thing that I ended up repatriating from Harvard in this story, is the embodiment of the original treaty between human beings and animals, in this area, like the Blackfoot territory of North America, which is substantial. It's like the upper Missouri and upper Saskatchewan drainage basins is the headwaters of 2 major river systems. And this goes back to like when the Beaver Bundle came in was the same time that dogs were domesticated, because they're part of that story. So that's how old this goes back. And
about how long is that ago?
I have no idea. I mean, I can tell you what the scientists think. I don't know if they're right.
Yes. No idea.
Huh?
Before there were horses, right?
Oh, 5,000 to 8,000 years ago.
That's what I was looking for. Great.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
At least to have domesticated dogs here. And
say a little more about the bundle.
And not only that, but like I think it's even longer than that, because here you have like Iniskim at sites, which are buffalo stones. They're like these fossils that look like buffaloes, but they're part of a ceremony that became part of the Beaver Bundle after the Beaver Bundle already existed. And those things are found, those Iniskim are found at bison sites here in Alberta going back like 9,000-10,000 years. So I think the Beaver Bundle's even older than that. Like, it's very, very old. It's the first medicine bundle in the Blackfoot tradition. I know it, like nobody knows, a lot of people out there don't know what medicine bundles are or whatever, but in this case, without going through the whole origin of that. It's really a bunch of skins from animals who gave knowledge to humans in a treaty agreement situation.
Yeah, this is the humans and the animals coming together in relation.
Yeah.
Under the auspices of an agreement that they have together, that they form together. And the bundle is the embodiment of those agreements, if I'm understanding something.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, that bundle is very fluid. New, like, animals bring new things in, animals and plants bring new things into the bundles through humans. And then humans have experiences that the beaver bundles end up kind of like say somebody has an experience where they themselves are given some kind of very important knowledge from an animal, like in a spiritual way, like they have a dream about it and it's vivid, and the animal tells them in their head, it's talking to, like, and a beaver bundle owner might look at that person and watch them for a little bit and see what happens with that. And if it seems to be that they think that their experience was very valid, they got something beneficial that should, that the people should adopt, then the beaver woman might go to that person and ask to kind of buy that gift into the bundle. And so the beaver bundle's constantly absorbing things and then putting things out too. So if they have, somebody has that new experience, say they have an experience where like what has happened, the thunder, the thunder came in conflict with people, and the humans' relationships with animals is what kind of saved them from that conflict. The animals dealt with the thunder on behalf of the people, the crows in particular. And the thunder was made to kind of make amends to the people for something it had done. So it was giving the people a bundle that would protect them from it, not only the thunder, but its close associates, which included bears.
Mm.
And in order for that person's experience to be legitimated and brought kind of into the Orthodox tradition so that the bundle was like validated by the community, the beaver bundle would feed it and give some things from the beaver bundle into that bundle to validate it. Hey, so beaver bundle is kind of the hub, hey, of because the what matters is the treaty between the living beings here. That is the beaver bundle.
And also it's a kind of library of transfers.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Transfer meaning when something profoundly sacred, powerful, or meaningful is given out or brought in.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's the ceremonial process of the transfer, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you to pause for right here. Can you hold your thought?
I will.
The reason is the recording's about to end, so I have to restart it to continue recording.
Cool.
So hold your thought and we'll be right back.